Let's go. Welcome to Kilimanjaro Safaris, everyone. I'll be your guide here this morning. My name is Nicholas from Mesa, Arizona. Just a few safety reminders before we do head out. Please keep those hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the truck at all times. And please remain seated at all times. If you're traveling with little ones today, please make sure they remain seated as well. And if you're traveling with lap sitters today, please make sure they remain seated in your lap at all times. And you now lift them up in the air. Have them stand on top of your legs or pass them from one person to the next. If you look above your head, you'll see the animal spotting guide, which will keep reference to some of the animals that reside here within the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. And the first part of our safari here today is going to be taking us through the Little Ituri Forest. The animals up here in the forest do like to use their camouflage to blend into their surroundings, so do keep an eye out. They can pop out of anywhere at any time at any moment.
Bamboo. Water.
And it looks like over here on the right is the Okapi antelope. The Okapi there may look like it's related to the zebra, but they're going to be more commonly related to the giraffe. They're currently the only known relative to the giraffes, and they'll have long black bluish tongues, 4 stomach chambers just like cows and giraffes, and 2 ossicones that sit directly on top of their head. The first Okapi wasn't discovered by Westerners until around 1901, and the first baby Okapi in the wild wasn't even seen until around 2018. To our left here, the ones with the horns, those are the bongo antelope. Bongos are going to be known as the ghosts of the forest, and they'll end up using those long curved horns of theirs to protect their heads when they run through bushes. The ones without the horns are the greater kudu. Those are going to be female greater kudu because they do not have horns while males will. And the females will tend to live in pods of up to around 3 to 10. A fully grown greater kudu grow up to around 5 feet tall. And it looks like over here on the left-hand side is the black rhino. Black rhinos weigh up to around 3,000 to 3,500 pounds and are very solitary animals. They'll hardly ever socialize with others or even with their own species. They're also critically endangered in the wild due to poaching for their horns, which are made out of keratin, the same material that our hair and fingernails are made out of. Poachers believe that keratin has a medicinal value, but that has never once been proven to this day. Looks like up here on the left-hand side is the saddle-billed stork. Saddle-billed stork's wingspans can reach up to around 9 feet in length, which is around the width of the canopy that sits above your head here this morning. Once they find a mate, they will go off and mate for life. Females will have yellow eyes, while males will have dark brown eyes, and they're going to be one of the tallest birds found here in Africa. We're now going to be leaving the forest and making our way toward the rivers of Africa, called the Safi River, which does tend to be inhabited by the Nile crocodiles and the Nile hippopotamuses.
Okay. Oh, what a croc.
And it looks like over here on the right is the pink-backed pelicans. Pink-backed pelicans are going to be one of the only pelican species that nest in trees, and they'll end up getting their pinkish color during mating seasons, and they'll also end up mating for life just like the saddle-billed storks do. To the left over here is the Nile hippopotamus. Nile hippos spend most of their days submerged underneath the waters here in Africa, and they can end up holding their breath for up to around 8 minutes at a time. If a hippo does decide to venture out onto dry land long enough and it is hot enough outside, they will start to slowly secrete a red-like liquid from their skin, which will end up covering their entire body, and that ends up helping protect their skin from the sun, acting sort of like a sunscreen for them. Hippos are one of the most powerful animals in the entire world, and they have no known predators in the wild except for us humans. Plus, hippos rarely ever swim. Instead of swimming, they'll walk along the bottom of the riverbanks and end up floating up at the very top of them. And a group of hippos will be known as a float of hippopotamuses. To the left here is going to be the animal with one of the strongest bites out here in Africa, and that is going to be the Nile crocodile. Nile crocodiles are the largest of the African crocodilian species.
Look at the croc.
I know, I'm trying to get it. It's moving.
Nile crocodiles are scavengers and opportunistic feeders, so they do tend to eat whatever they are able to find. They are carnivores, and they can eat their weight's worth in fish in just about a day. They're also going to have very slow metabolism, so during the hot summer days, they will only ever need to eat around once a week, and during the colder winter months, they will only ever need to eat around once a month, and sometimes only once every 2 months. Coming up here on the right-hand side is the baobab tree, which will also end up going by the name of the Tree of Life. The baobab tree will go up to around 9 months out of the year without sprouting any leaves or foliage. And its large trunk there will hold up to around 1,000 gallons of water, which is great for the animals out here in Africa who have the ability to use their tusks or their horns to puncture the tree trunk to gain access to all the water that is going to be held inside it. It especially becomes very useful during those long drought periods that do tend to happen here in Africa from time to time. We're now making our way into the savannah, which is home to many different types of species of animals, like the giraffes, the zebras, the Ankole cattle, the wildebeests, and the painted dogs.
Doggy!
It looks like to the right here are the springbok antelope. Springboks are the smallest antelope in the world, and they have the ability to jump 6 feet in the air and leap forward another 13 feet. They can also end up reaching a maximum speed of up to around 50 miles per hour, which is almost the top speed of the cheetahs. It also looks like up here on the right are the Hartman mountain zebra. Mountain zebras are going to have very small, delicate hoofs, which will have better traction running and climbing at high elevations out here in Africa. A zebra's stripe patterns can be just like our fingerprints. No two zebra will ever end up having the same stripe pattern. And the mountain zebra here are going to have a bit of a thinner stripe to their pattern than other zebra species found throughout Africa here. And it looks like laying in the cave over here to the left are a couple of painted dogs, which also end up going by the name of the African wild dogs. Painted dogs are going to be part of the canine family, but they'll have one unique characteristic unlike typical canines. The painted dogs will only have 4 toes, while standard canines will typically have 5 toes. And they're going to be one of the most successful hunters in all of Africa. They'll have a success rate of up to around 80 to 90%, which is a little bit more than 3 times the success rate of the lions when they end up going off hunting for their own prey at night. Also over here on the right, these are the Ankole cattle. Ankole cattle's horns are going to be mostly hollow, with a honeycomb-like structure inside. Blood will end up flowing to the tip of their horn back down, which does help regulate their body temperature so they don't end up overheating during those hot summer days out here in Africa. And their horns will grow up to around 4 to 5 feet long. They're also going to be very, very distant relatives of the Texas Longhorns that reside out in the United States. To the left here is the sable antelope. Sable antelope are very territorial animals, and in a fight or flight situation, they will tend to choose fight. They'll end up using those long curved horns of theirs to help block lunges and incoming attacks from predators. Wow, and they'll end up declaring dominance over one another by sparring in their herds. And it looks like coming up ahead on the right and left here are the Maasai giraffes. Maasai giraffes are going to have a bit of a splotchier, rougher pattern to the other giraffe species found in Africa here. And a newly born giraffe will be around 6 feet tall, while a fully grown giraffe will be around 16 to 20 feet tall. They'll spend around 18 to 20 hours a day eating, and will only tend to spend a total of around 30 minutes throughout the day sleeping. Now, more than likely end up sleeping while they are standing up, so they're always wide alert in case a predator may be lurking a little too closely nearby for them. Also on the right over here is the Patterson eland antelope. Patterson eland are one of the largest antelopes in the world, and they'll stand around 6 feet tall and can jump another 8 feet just from a stationary standing position. When a male Patterson eland sees a mate that he is interested in and likes, he'll end up making a grass crown and end up wearing it on top of his head as a way to try to attract and impress potential mates. But if that mate is unimpressed by that crown of his, they'll end up tearing it off of his head and having him start from scratch all over again.
Can't get one of
And it
Walmart?
looks like there's some more Maasai giraffes coming up ahead shortly on the right here. When a giraffe is born, when female giraffes give birth, they will end up giving birth while standing up. It is around a 6-foot drop to the ground for that baby giraffe once it is born. But once that baby giraffe is born, it will only take up to around 1 to 2 hours for it to learn how to walk and run all on its own. And when a giraffe is born, those two ossicones that sit directly on top of their head will be made out of cartilage. But once they start to grow older, it will start to slowly harden into solid bone. And it looks like there are some knocked over trees up ahead, which more than likely means we are making our way up into elephant territory next. So keep an eye out up ahead for the African elephants.
Timber. Firewood. Look at the steps in the water. Yeah, there's no lifeguards.
And it looks like the elephants may still be over at the other watering hole, so we're going to see if we can see them up ahead at the next watering hole. So just sit back and relax while we make our way up toward there, and we should be up at the next watering hole within just a few short moments.
Very bumpy roads, very bumpy.
We're now making our way into the red clay pits. Red clay is used by elephants as a good source of vitamins and minerals. And when they end up eating the clay, they'll end up leaving tusk marks behind like the ones over here on the right. Elephants are very peaceful and very friendly animals, but they have been known to cause a little bit of trouble from time to time, especially for farmers out here in Africa, where they're going onto their farmlands and stomping and eating all their crops.
Lunchtime.
But over in Disney's Animal Kingdom, the animal care teams over there ended up discovering that elephants are very scared of bees. This is because elephants have very sensitive skin. So the farmers out here in Africa ended up partnering with the Disney's Animal Care team, and they ended up building bee boxes which play the buzzing noises that bees produce. But elephants are one of the smartest animals in the entire world, so they end up falling for that. So the farmers eventually had to resort to building real beehives and stringing them up all across their farmlands, which now helps to cheer those elephants from going for their migration paths and stomping and eating their crops. Also bring up the world's bee population. Plus, the farmers were able to eventually sell the honey that those bees ended up producing for them for a bit of an extra income at their local markets out here in Africa.
You trying to get a picture?
If you see an elephant that is flapping their ears, that means they're trying to cool off their internal body temperature. They have blood veins that run throughout their entire earlobe, and by flapping those ears of theirs, they can help circulate that blood, and they're going to end up helping to cool off their body temperatures by around 10 to 15 degrees, sort of like an internal air conditioning for them. Elephants also do live in a matriarchal society, so that means females will typically lead the herds. So once the male elephant ends up reaching the age of maturity, which is around 12 to 15 years old, that elephant will end up leaving its herd behind and going off and living as a single bachelor elephant. They'll eventually form into little bachelor pods of other single male elephants all up and across the savannah here in Africa. And it looks like up here on the left-hand side are a couple of greater flamingos. A group of flamingos like the ones here to the left will be known as a flamboyance of flamingos. And a flamingo hatches from their shell, they'll be born gray and very fluffy. It does take up to around 2 to 3 years for them to get their pinkish color, which they're typically known for. And they'll end up getting that color due to their diets, which consist mostly of brine, shrimp, and algae. The greater flamingo here to the left is going to have one of the lightest shades of pink out of the 8 flamingo species that are found throughout the world today. Looks like we're making our way up into the eastern part of the savanna next, which does tend to be home to the white rhinos, the ostriches, and the cheetahs. It looks like over here on the left-hand side is a white rhino. White rhinos weigh up to around 5,000 pounds and have very poor vision. They can only see up to around 10 feet in front of them. So whether it be a human or a tree, if it's around 10 feet away, it does look about the same to them. White rhinos will get their name not because of their color, but due to a mistranslation of the Dutch word of wide, which is white. W-H-Y-T-E, because the white rhinos here to the left are going to have a wider jaw set than the black rhino that we saw earlier in the forest. And a group of rhinos like the ones here to the left will be known as a crash of rhinos. It looks like up here on the left-hand side is the ostrich. Ostriches are the largest of the bird species, and they'll weigh up to around 300 pounds, can reach speeds of up to around 40 miles per hour. They'll end up using those large wings of theirs to help guide them in whichever direction they want to be running in. So say if an ostrich wants to end up turning left, they'll end up putting the left wing of theirs out to help guide them in that specific direction.
It's a turn signal.
And it looks like laying over here in the corner is a cheetah back there. Cheetahs are able to reach a maximum speed of up to around 60 to 70 miles per hour. They can end up going from 0 to 60 in just about 3 seconds.
There,
But they'll
Johanna.
only be able to keep up that top speed for just up to around 100 to 200 meters. They'll have little tiny black lines underneath their eyes, which will help reflect sunlight and ends up helping protect their eyes from the sun, acting sort of like sunglasses for them throughout the brightest parts of the day. And it looks like up ahead, we are making our way toward the Kopi Rocks, which are typically used by the lions as a good way to overlook the savanna in search of prey for when they are hunting. They also use the rocks as a good place to nap on and sleep on throughout the day, since lions do like to sleep around 18 to 20 hours.
Sounds like my nephew.
And it looks like there is a male lion over here on the left. At night, the female lioness will go off hunting for the prey, while the male will end up staying back and protecting the cubs in their homes. Lions will hunt at night because they do have 6 times better night vision than us humans do, but only 1 out of every 12 hunts that a lion ends up going on will end up turning into a success for them. When a lion roars, the roar is so powerful at times that it can sometimes be carried up and across the savanna for up to around 5 entire miles. The Swahili word for lion is Simba, and a group of lions will be known as a pride of lions. And if that male lion there looks a little bit familiar to you, is because they did do facial imaging of his face, and they ended up using it as the one of Simba in the live-action Lion King movie that released in 2019. And you can also end up seeing him star in the upcoming release of Mufasa coming out in December. And it looks like all the way back here is a waterbuck antelope. Waterbucks are very shy, solitary animals, and they'll spend most of their time around big pools of water like lakes and rivers here in Africa. Once they find a nice place to settle down, they'll hardly ever want to leave that one spot. They also have the ability to secrete an oily, fishy-like substance from their skin, which ends up helping to waterproof their coat of fur and gives each waterbuck a distinct smell so they can tell each other apart.
They don't use deodorant.
Now, it looks like on the ground over here to the right are a couple of ostrich eggs. Ostrich eggs will weigh up to around 2 to 3 pounds, and a fully grown human can stand on the very top of those eggs without even breaking them. But we don't ever recommend doing that because ostriches are very territorial animals, and just one kick from an ostrich does have enough power to end up knocking out a zebra and or a lion. We are now making our way into Magotti's Glen, which does tend to be home to the Reserve Warden's post, and the Reserve Warden has been known to take care of some Nigerian dwarf goats. Yeah, looks like up here on the left, on top of the Jeep and on top of the Reserve Warden's post is some Nigerian dwarf goats. Dwarf goats are used by farmers out here in Africa for their milk, which is sweeter than cow's milk. They'll also be made into butter and cheeses and sold at the local markets out here in Africa. They're very friendly, playful, and social animals, and they'll usually base their hierarchy in their herds by how friendly and social they are. So the more friendly and social the goat is, the higher that goat will end up ranking within their own herd. And a fully grown Nigerian dwarf goat will be around 1.5 to 2 feet tall. And a lot of people out here in Africa will also use the dwarf goats as emotional support animals, along with cats and dogs as well. And if anyone is interested in getting close to one of those dwarf goats, you can head over toward Rafiki's Planet Watch's affection section. They have those dwarf goats over there for everyone to interact with. The last train for Rafiki's will leave at around the Harambe village at 4:30 this afternoon. We are now going to be nearing the end of our safari here this morning, but once you exit, you'll be at the entrance of the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail, which is a 15 to 20 minute self-guided tour, where you'll be able to see some animals that you can't even see from the safari here, like the naked mole rats, the meerkats, the bird aviary, the gorillas, and an underwater viewing area for hippos. If you head over toward Asia near Kali River Rapids is the Maharaja Jungle Trek, with the animals that are native to the continent of Asia, like the fruit bats, the Komodo dragons, the tigers, and the water buffalo. Both of those trails will close at 6 o'clock today. And if we have any wilderness explorers on board today, you have been riding along on the Simba 1. That is SIMBA1. Talk to a wilderness explorer cast member near the exit to get your safari badge. Tell them you're on Simba 1 and your favorite animal. And you can find all the information about those safari badges on pages 14 and 15 of the Wilderness Explorer guidebooks here today.
Wow, that was awesome. Yeah, that was cool.
And I'm not going to be dropping you off here. I'm going to be dropping you off originally where I picked you up. So just sit back and relax while we make our way back up toward the front of the safari entrance here today. And if anyone's interested in helping the animals you saw here today, you can always donate to the Disney Conservation Fund. Every donation you make today will be matched dollar for dollar, cent by Disney.